So I called up my buddy, or not called up, but I texted my buddy Rufus yesterday, Rufus Peabody, who of course tweeted this yesterday in case you missed it, simply with the words, well, that hurt. $500 bet at 300 to 1 odds at Circa to win $150,000 on Mito Pereira, who of course led this tournament for so much of it, including after 71 holes, and then not so much. And by the way, before the break, I said $300,000, and I said, oh, maybe I misspoke. And you, Rufus, by the way, Rufus Peabody, everybody in studio, you came in and you said, oh, no, that's not a misspeaking at all.
I mean, it wasn't misspeaking because I never said that to you, but I did have more exposure than just this ticket, and it was about 300,000. Yeah.
Okay, so
and what was painful, Gill, is that I actually had even more on Cam Young, and I had Fitzpatrick, and I actually had a little Bubba Watson too, and some Zalatoris that I bet. Zalatoris is the only one that was bet in tournaments. So basically, like for me to not hit an outright was pretty painful there.
So you had it all surrounded,
basically, yeah.
With the exception of
no answer, no JT.
No answer, no JT.
Yeah, answer was closer. I mean, answer was 4 under to start the round.
Okay, so to those who say, how can you not have the word that everybody's using is hedge. How could you not have, let's use the word monetizing. How could you not have monetized this position? You would say what?
I'd say I monetized it in expected value.
Meaning that
over a long enough time horizon, I'm going to do better by just letting those positions ride than by hedging, given where my bankroll is and the exposure I had.
So you take...
If I had $10,000 to my name, you bet I would hedge. But my bankroll is such that it is not the right move for me.
So your considerations are different, you're saying. And so, yes, you play it more mechanically than to be concerned with that moment in time.
Yes.
Okay.
I could still react emotionally at times, but
right. Well,
but the decisions are sound, logical, rational.
Right. Because so part of the discussion that's being had on Twitter, by the way, it ranges from a very mathematical discussion to a very emotional one, right? There's all kinds of different responses there. And, one of them is, I'll tell you what one response is. One response is, oh my God, you absolutely could not have done anything about it. There is no way to get down a lot on that kind of thing. You could have before the round.
Right, and you probably could have at Betfair, but I think the danger of live betting is the delay. I mean, the fact that I don't know if these odds express the current, or expressing information that I don't know, right?
Right.
Like, my TV feed may not be as fast.
Whew, you are super, you think of it super mechanically. Most bettors are not like this, because most bettors would say, and okay, so we're not talking about, now here in the state of Nevada, you are constrained by Nevada, what is available to you in Nevada.
In Nevada, there's no way I could have hedged out of that position in tournament.
Not during the fourth round.
Correct.
For sure. Now offshore, right, even back 9, like you could have had JT at 30 to 1, you wouldn't even have to place that much money on it to make back a whole bunch of money. That wasn't something that was in your thinking to do.
That would have been a very negative EV bet. It would have won, but it would have been a negative EV bet.
So even if yes, it would have been a negative EV bet. Let's go with that. But it would have solidified with the exception of Answer, who was not going to win, it would have solidified every possible outcome for you.
I mean, not every, JT wasn't even in the conversation until fairly late.
I will tell you though, I saw a 30 to 1 on him, and let me just be honest. I stared at it, and I am so regretful that I didn't bet it, because while watching that tournament, with all that you're saying, understood.
He's been there.
Maybe I'm a stroke or two behind, but he's been there. We've seen him play like this before. I should have pulled the trigger on it. I didn't. And I thought about your bet, and I'm like, wow, was that not something you thought to do?
I to be honest, I never even thought about hedging once. I thought about adding to the Mito Pereira position going into round 4, because I made him plus 141. I could get plus 160. I think there might have been a plus 165 out there. I didn't add to it though, because I was like, I have enough exposure there.
There's many interesting comments on this. Again, the tweet from Rufus, well, that hurt. $500 bet to win $300,000 at 150 to 1 at Circa. One of the many comments, because there was lots of fascinating reactions. One of the many comments was, someone said, about hedging, that they feel like there's probably a correlation between those that hedge and those that don't, that roughly correlates to really serious professional bettors to people who hedge probably aren't. Do you believe in that?
I do. I think that I think hedging should happen fairly rarely, even for recreational bettors, because when you're hedging, you're
life-changing money, injury, that kind of thing.
And by this, I mean a negative expected value bet to hedge out of a position. Like someone that says, I'm going to bet this team -3 because eventually they're going to get a lead. Eventually at some point in the game, there's going to be a live line where I can get the other team at +5.5, and so I'm going to just open up that middle. And you know what? The logic behind that is very not sound, but if you place all these futures bets with the thought that if you get into this position, you're going to hedge, you have to take that cost consideration into account with your original bet. If 10% of the time you're going to make a -5% expected value bet to hedge, you're really going to eat away at your profits long term.
Did you expect this kind of reaction, by the way?
No, not at all. Honestly, I place a lot of outright bets every week.
Yeah.
This was, this is because it's a major, I can get down more. And so it's a bigger swing. It's certainly not the worst beat I've ever had in terms of a one-shot lead going into 18, which is one of, if not the hardest holes on the course, is certainly not a gimme by any stretch.
Let me ask this question too, because it occurs to me that some folks listening to this might just have this thought too, which is, okay, Rufus, I get your thought process. Maybe I don't agree with it, but I get it. But is there any part of you in that says, okay, and I totally get my mechanical approach to this, negative EV, so I'm not going to make the bet, never thought about doing that, but that we're dealing with, if you had made let's say you had thought to make a 30-1 JT bet on hole 13 or 14, whatever it was specifically.
Then Pereira would have won.
Well, okay, right. Well, there's that,
Yeah.
right? The whole gambler mentality, the psychology of gamblers. But is there part of you that ever steps back, Rufus, and says, okay, wait a minute, though. While I am this mechanical, we're still talking about a very large amount of money for anyone, right?
Yes.
We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. You do not sneeze at that, right? That's still
it's real.
Yes,
Right.
it's real
but
money.
you can't think of it as real money when you're placing these bets. Otherwise, it would just drive you crazy. I don't think of the purchasing power of, the $25,000 I'm betting on this golf matchup when or what that's going to do. I think of it as, numbers on a spreadsheet.
Okay, let's talk about one more possibility here. There is no cash out option in Nevada. Cash out options
Don't use them.
have been, I don't, right? Well, listen, here's the thing about cash out options for those who don't know. They are not reflective of true odds. So it is always shaded to the side of the book. So if you think you're making a deal, you aren't. We don't have that ability in Nevada. If there was one, I guess you've already answered the question. You wouldn't have done it.
Of course not.
You would not have.
No, but again, if let's say I had $20,000 to my name, then it would have been the right move to cash out, or at least cash some of it out at some point, because But I would never have made that bet for $500 if I had $20,000 to my name. That would have been an irresponsibly large bet, and I would probably go broke if I was betting like that.
Someone else jumped in with that comment too, where they were like,
So-
what gets lost in the discussion is we don't, I'm trying to remember who made what comment, but that gets lost in the discussion too, is that most people wouldn't be in this position to begin with for them to then sort of get in your shoes after the fact and make the comment of what you should have done.
But I will say this, you have to take each decision individually on its own merits. And just because I had overbet my bankroll, maybe that's a mistake. But, there are situations where hedging would have been the right move. If your bankroll was small enough, that's the case.
That was another comment. Someone said, if you're always looking to hedge, you're probably overbetting your bankroll. Do you agree with that?
I think that I might have said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, I agree with that.
You might have said that.
I that's not a hard and fast rule, but I think most people that are hedging that much probably are, yeah.
And in the end, you made out
feel
okay.
the need to.
In the end, you made out okay in this tournament?
Yeah, I actually had a very good weekend, but it still felt like a big loss because, had Mito hit, it would have been the biggest weekend ever for me. So
Ever. And that's saying something for you.
Yes.
Instead, it was just a really darn good one.
Yeah.
Your brother didn't take it as well, psychologically?
Oh, I think we both took it the same. We felt physically ill, but
Physically ill.
But
You're human.
you experience that disappointment, and you sit with it, and then you move on. And today's a new day. This is a new week, and my figure this week is 0.
More with Rufus Peabody. On the other side, we'll take some listener questions as well. Numbers Game, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. The ever-changing who's going to play and who's not going to play situation and drama continues in the Celtics-Bucks series. What do you got, Jeff?
Celtics Heat, real quick.
Oh, Celtics Heat. That's correct.
Tyler Hero, who did not play that whole second half with the groin injuries, not going to play tonight. And a little bit surprising here, this actually has moved the whole point with no Hero. Has moved since that was announced.
Celtics by a touchdown now.
Yeah, now to a whole 7.
With the extra point.
Still,
Celtics by 7.
Butler, as of right now, because this was from Spoelstra at their shoot-around, Butler's going to try to go. That's what they're going with.
Butler's going to try to go, and Hero did not have a great game in the Heat win in Game 3. So it wasn't like he was a massive contributor.
He barely played.
Game. Yeah. Heat plus 7's not a play? Give me that. I'm starting.
Jimmy Butler's there.
If it ticks any more, like you're going to force me to make a Heat bet plus points at this point. Heat up 2-1. Again, they've won 2 quarters. 2 quarters in 3 games. Up 2-1 in that series. You following basketball at all?
No, not really. I mean,
hockey at all?
Not really.
What is your?
I know what teams are playing and things like that, but
you're that off the grid at this point. What's your betting story? You're a baseball guy. You're a golf guy.
No, I'm just doing golf now.
Just golf.
Golf. I mean, football during the football season, but I got a lot of other stuff going on too.
Yeah, you do.
Unabated.
Unabated.
Yeah, unabated.
You're unabated to plug. Trip Tepper. Can you please ask Rufus how much age factors into his golf handicapping, specifically in the 4 majors plus the players? The current ages of players holding the 4 major trophies in the players: Scheffler 25, Morikawa 25, Rahm 27, Cam Smith 28, Thomas 29. You've always put age curves into your models.
Yes, there's age curves.
Baseball too.
Yep. I will say that it feels like players are developing much quicker now in golf. Golfers are developing much quicker. Mm-hmm. A lot of that, I think, is the analytics and the fact that you have guys like Scott Fawcett and who are out there who are able to essentially give these players like course experience without having course experience. There's a lot more analytics too, and I think that the younger generation is more aligned with that than some of the older guys.
So in the end, then, getting back for those who missed it, the previous segment. So there was no monetization specifically of this ticket then.
No, none at all.
None at all. And
I had some Pereira each ways in Europe, so that the place part of that paid, but that's like, pennies compared to the outright part.
And so I guess let me just ask from a more macro perspective. So this approach has served you well over time.
Yes. I still remember the bad beats for sure. Kyle Stanley needing a double bogey to win on 18 at Torrey Pines for the Farmers Open in 2012 and triple bogeying. Adam Scott blowing a 4-shot lead over Ernie Els with 4 holes to go in the British Open. I remember those for sure. But I've hit quite a few as well.
See, if people listen to this show long enough, let me just raise my hand and saying, I'm not a hedger by nature either. I believe that was Naughty by Nature song. I'm not a hedger by nature. I am of that ilk. But in a situation like this, I'll get back to it again. Like this is the part where you separate yourself from the normal person, where you are just so mechanical in this. Again, we're talking about a good chunk of money. You talk about dealing with it. So you and you mentioned your brother. I'm sorry to bring your brother into it, but you mentioned off air. You were like, oh, Tom had a little more trouble with it.
Well, no. Tom and I both we both felt like gut punched by it. And that's what I was saying.
So for what's the amount of time in your brain, rattling around in your brain, you say to yourself, man, I should have probably done that. Or does that thought not happen to you?
The thought never happened that I should have hedged. The thought was like, why did that ball not go in the hole on 17? Why did it not go 1 more inch? Why did Mito hit a driver on 18? Why did he make such a bad swing? That's the thought, which is...
That thing with the driver happened so fast, too.
Yeah.
Before we could even react.
There was no sort of time on TV where they're talking about, he's suddenly up there and hitting.
Right. So...
Like, it's about having a process and trusting that process.
I get it.
And it doesn't mean that that I'm not allowed to be emotional or to feel disappointment. I totally felt the disappointment there, but I know that there's nothing I could have done to change the outcome, and the hedging was not the right move for me in terms of knowing what I knew at the time. And so I experienced that disappointment, and then I reset and move on.
If someone who had multiple of your wealth came to you today and said, "Boy, Rufus, I would have hedged that, and I have 10x of what you have." Same answer. You're just like, "Look, this is how I roll. This is how my brain works in these situations. If it's a negative EV bet, even if it covers all possible outcomes at that point, you wouldn't be interested in just grabbing a 30-1. Just be un-Rufus for a second."
Look, if it was it depends on how negative EV it was. So for me, going into the final round, it's circa I could have laid minus 175 on Pereira not winning. In which case, like if Cam Young wins, like I'm like, this is amazing, right? But I made the price there, the no, minus 141. So that's a big negative EV bet. So in essence, like let's say I made the no minus 165, then it probably is worth hedging a little bit. Mathematically?
Do you ever think to yourself, I need more humility in my model in those situations? Or are you so loyal to your numbers and think that they are, I don't want to say this word because it sounds like I'm being mean about it, but or do you say my numbers are infallible, this is what they are?
My numbers are definitely not infallible, but my number on Pereira was roughly in line with the market after you take out the VIG going into round 4. So
why didn't you the night before? Let's say the night before. Let's say we're not in an in-game situation where things are happening on the fly. Why didn't you on the night before sort of, we've had people who are in Survivor, right, who meticulously, Wall Street guys, who meticulously will figure out all the possible combinations of what they can do and how they can monetize their Survivor entry. Here before, when after round 3, before the final round, when you have time to sort of sit quietly and think through these things, wasn't interesting for you to do it that way. If we'll take the in-tournament thing on the final round off the table.
I mean, as I said, like the price that I could have gotten would have been so negative EV. Would you ever lay minus 175 if you made a price minus 141?
I wouldn't in a pre-flop vacuum thing, but if I have your situation where there is money to be made in all possible reasonable outcomes but one, and I'm talking now back to Sunday, I think I probably do jump in and grab the JT. I almost grabbed the JT and I have nothing to do with it.
See, the JT. So I looked at my price on JT was way worse than the markets because that's not a bettable number. Basically, those guys way back books. I forget what books were offering.
Now I'm going back to
now we're live.
Now we're back on Sunday. He's 30-1 with a handful of holes left. And as you said, I didn't even say it. You said he's JT.
But how many people were in between him and the lead?
I get it.
Yeah.
But
a lot of things had to happen. More than 30-1 worth of things had to happen.
Right. But for you, that was the only remaining piece of the puzzle to secure profit.
Yes.
And I think that's the part that...
I think what people don't understand is that for me, it's not about securing profit from this. It's about maximizing my long-term profit from it.
Yeah.
Right. And it is okay if I don't secure profit on this market in 1 week.
I get it. I think it's a fascinating conversation.
And I had profit in other areas by betting, as I said.
Yeah.
I absolutely crushed on matchups this week.
What was your biggest crushing matchup?
I mean,
too many.
I honestly don't remember.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I'm sure. Listen, I think it's great, first of all, that you put it out there on Twitter because I think
I only post losing tickets on Twitter. That's my policy.
You're not Floyd Mayweather.
No.
I think it's great because it provokes a fascinating conversation, right? That runs the gamut on the spectrum, right? There's the people who get it, like Rufus. I totally get your plus EV approach, and then on the far side of the spectrum, right? There's people who are like, that guy's full of it. I can't believe. And so I just think it's I'm probably somewhere in the middle on it, right? And I just think it's a fascinating gamut to get into.
But Gill, if I had a bet to win $5 million instead of $300,000, it's different. I probably hedge there because it would be the right thing to do mathematically
for you.
It would be the right thing mathematically for me from a Kelly maximizing my bankroll perspective.
I appreciate you coming in, man. This is fascinating stuff as always.
Enjoy it, Gill, as always.